Colin Powell once said, "There are no secrets to success. It's the result of preparation, hard work, and learning from failure." And we couldn't agree more. This is Unleash the Champ Leadership Podcast. Unleash the Champ Leadership Podcast. We'll talk to people from all walks of life and pick their brains about their journey, the process, and the ups and downs to becoming successful. You want inspiration and motivation? It all starts here. This is the Unleash the Champ Leadership Podcast. And now your host, Kyle Sullivan.
What's going on, champions? Welcome to another episode of Unleash the Champ Leadership Podcast. Our guest today, Chris Lautenslager, is a seasoned sales and business veteran with a master's of finance and economics from Northwestern University. 40-year career began on the floor of the Chicago Mercantile Exchange, where he started his first business in a partnership with his brother, Curtis. With the introduction of electric trading, he transitioned to Wall Street to participate in the new technology. He was a senior sales executive with some of the most prominent financial institutions, learned the business practices that could propel or crush a company's potential for success. Driven by an unshakable desire to partner with the leaders of small and medium businesses, Chris founded Get Loop LLC as a platform to showcase the value and benefits of a collective prosperity for people, businesses, and communities. Chris, thanks so much for being on the show today.
Hey, it's a pleasure to be here, Kyle. Happy 4th of July.
Happy 4th of July. We were recording this and we were talking before. It's like, hey, we got impact to make, so we're recording today. Chris, we got the bio, and as impressive as it is, we love to hear here, who is Chris behind the bio?
Thank you for that introduction and for the question. You know, we all go on a journey through life, and the lessons that we take from it are our choice. The initial lessons that I learned growing up were to chase all the material things. And I did exactly that. I followed the path that I was told was the fastest way to acquire things, go to a good school and go work for the best firms in the financial center of the world. But that really wasn't the path that resonated with me over my lifetime. It was the path that I thought I should do, not the path that called to me. And so during the pandemic, I had an opportunity to be able to reflect. What do I want from life? What's my role here? How can I make a difference? And really, it made me think all the way back to when I was growing up. So I grew up in a family-oriented, small business environment. My father, Kurt, owned a small business, a successful small business. In fact, Kyle kind of started by accident. He and his brother Ben were patching holes in Ben's driveway, and a neighbor stopped and said, "Hey, would you patch the holes in my driveway too?" Boom. B&C, Ben and Kurt Paving Company, was born. Like so many businesses in this country, opportunity knocks and people answer. And then growing up, anytime I wasn't going to school, my father would wake me up at 4 a.m. and drag me to this place called Doris's Diner. It's where all the local businessmen started their day. And they'd all be sitting around a table, drinking coffee and talking about their families and their businesses and the town. And I grew up in Chicago, so they were also always talking about how bad the Cubs were playing that year. I did every job possible at that company. I did everything from managing traffic on busy city streets to shoveling hot asphalt on sweltering summer days here in Chicago to driving that big, huge steamroller. And yes, that's actually fun. I can't tell you how many people were like, "Can I drive the steamroller?" No. No, I get to drive the steamroller. It was fun. But I got to tell you, Kyle, the most important job that I did the lesson that my father taught me that resonates with me so much today is that when the job was over, we'd go and meet with the customer in person and say, thank you for your business. They always appreciated it. And it became my favorite part of work. It was just such an enjoyable experience. I remember coming back from my first year of college, and my father was treating me differently. Instead of telling me what to do, he would say, hey, Chris, what do you think of this idea? Now, in my world, having my father ask my opinion was a whole new ball of wax. It was thrilling for me. And then summer ends. It's a great experience that year. Got closer to my father than I had ever been in my entire life. And he pulls me aside as I'm walking out the door to go back to school. And he tells me something, Kyle, I had never heard before. I love you, Chris. And then it was only a few short months later, on a crappy rainy day in November, the phone rings. It's my mom. She's crying. Chris, come home. Your father's died. And just like that, your whole world changes. And the pandemic reminded me how fragile life is, that just at a moment's notice, life changes from what you think is happening to what is happening now. So I went home, and shortly after the funeral, the accountant was at our house going through mounds of paper that were on my dad's desk. And when he was done, the whole family gathered around the kitchen table to hear what he had to say. He was staring at his hands when he murmured, there's no money. I'm sorry, but there's no money. And I'm thinking to myself, how can that be? What are we going to do? And that's when my attention changed to my mother, who was sitting next to me, softly sobbing. Instinctively, I pulled her tight to me and said, it'll be okay, Mom. I promise. It'll be okay. Now, Kyle, I kept that promise to my mom. It was super important for me to be able to do so. And that's why I transitioned into this focus on helping small businesses, because I want to help other small business owners be able to keep those so important promises that they make to themselves and to the ones that they love.
Man, we could shut this down right now, man. Absolutely an incredible story. And before we started recording, you're like, man, I love to tell stories, and that was a powerful one as well. What are some of those promises that you love helping people keep? Because I know your focus is on that human capital and employee satisfaction. Like, what are some of those? And then, start to talk about where the prosperity loop plays into that and how that shift and pivot, as we talked about it in the pandemic. And where did that come from? How's it impacting people? What are some of those promises you help people keep?
So one of the things that I like to suggest to people is one simple step that you can do to immediately improve your customer relationships in your small business. And that is say thank you to your customers. And people are like, how trite, how simplistic. I promise you that if you start to tell your customers face to face, or even call them on the phone, thank you for your business, two things will happen. One, you'll differentiate yourself from all your competitors because it's so trite and so simple that nobody does it. Two, they'll remember you. And the bond between you and your customer will increase. And I'm going to give you a third, a bonus. You'll feel better about yourself. It's just a natural occurrence. So one simple step that I do to help people immediately improve their business and the way they feel about their business is to remind them that relationships are the key to your success. Start doing simple things like saying thank you for your business. That's part of it's a lesson that I think has served me better than almost any other suggestion that I could possibly make to someone. There's others, but that's always a good start.
Yeah, it's expressing gratitude.
It is expressing gratitude.
Depending on the industry, I mean, there could be a few or hundreds of people. And I love that, like, hey, it's simple, but my grandma growing up in Louisiana, she'd often tell me common sense ain't common. And she's like, yeah, of course, like, most of us are probably like, yeah, of course we should do that. And then you go, well, are you? Maybe not. Maybe not. And so talk about the prosperity loop and the benefit it has and how, how it got started and man, why is that what you're really passionate about right now?
So the prosperity loop, here's an unabashed plug. Prosperity Loop is a book that I wrote during the pandemic. I was having all these thoughts. I spend every morning in meditation, reading, writing, and prayer. It's just how I start my day. And, you hear that from people, oh, this is that, there's some good practices that you should initiate into your life to make your life better. And we had all this time during the pandemic. I was like, okay, I'm going to give some of these a try. And I start out 5 minutes here, 10 minutes there. And it didn't start with all these. It started with a little meditation, a 10-minute guided meditation through one of those apps that you can get on your phone. Then I added a little reading to that. Then I added a journaling. But who'd have thought that it would actually help focus my ideas? And the next thing I know, I'm starting to lay out the outline of a book. And the book, The Prosperity Loop, is about helping small business owners create a prosperous loop, a prosperous environment within their company that helps not only them to be profitable, to increase their profits, but also to help their organization have an impact on their lives, on their employees, and on their community. So there's 6 steps that I have within the Prosperity Loop. I have classes on them. I do lectures on them. I suggest you go and read the book. They're really pretty simple in regards to creating a common vision, cooperation and collaboration within your organization, creating value within your organization. And I use value twofold. One is increase obvious valuation, the net worth of your organization, how to do that, but also the importance of having values within your organization. Integrity is just so underrated and so important, particularly for management, because culture comes from the top. It all starts from the top. And when you start to actually walk the walk, talk the talk, people notice. They notice. You can't fake it. And they also notice when you don't. White lies, omissions. You might not think that people don't know that you're sort of skimming a little bit here and there. Well, first of all, and all these simple little shortcuts, we'll call them politely, have a way of impacting our souls, our persona, and it leaks into other areas of our life. So I talk about that. I talk about communication, shared rewards. I'm a firm believer in paying people of value for their contributions, of sharing their contributions. This concept of paying people a minimum wage. Sure, you can. And many business people believe that it's the way to make sure that they're profitable is to keep costs down as much as possible. I'm not saying to be extravagant or crazy, but I do believe in supporting the people that support your business. Who wants to create minimum anything for anyone? So I'm a firm believer in paying people more than or bonuses or incentives to help create value for your business also. And then an assessment and adjustment period on a regular basis. How are we doing? What are we doing? What are we doing right? A lot of people tend to focus on what are we doing wrong and how can we fix it? Real business growth is about focusing on the things you're doing right and building on your growth, on your strengths. Delegate the rest. Focus on your strengths. So that's what the book's about. And then I've been out speaking also, Kyle. I've been out speaking in regards to supporting the cultural changes in our society to support small businesses.
I love that, man. And definitely go get the book. We'll have it linked. When I was prepping for our interview, you talked about one of your clients that was the CEO of the tech firm in LA, and he didn't intend to be the CEO, but it became that. And I think you called it a friendly listener to that. So talk about how that impacted him, the results gotten, and how you used the principles that you talked about from your book to really move them forward.
Sure. So a lot of small business owners, and I'm focusing on small business. A lot of small business owners have a stoic approach to management. They're busy. They often have families, and they don't really have mentors that they get advice from or people that they can talk with. I'm a firm believer in finding someone that you can talk with. And that person doesn't have to have all the answers, but just being able to express what you're thinking, just being able to hear yourself talk about certain topics, ideas, people call it a pressure valve. Oof, business is tough sometimes. And holding all these things into yourself is really, really challenging. I talked about my father's death. He died because of business pressures. He died in the 70s when he was in the paving business, as I had mentioned, and that's a petroleum-based product. And during the Middle Eastern oil embargoes, the price of his product quadrupled overnight. The construction industry literally came to a catastrophic halt. He didn't have anyone to talk with. He died of a heart attack in the parking lot of the doctor after he had visited him because he couldn't sleep at night. He was experiencing so much stress. Felt like he couldn't talk to his wife about it. He couldn't talk to his neighbors. He was trapped, or at least he felt trapped. And I'm encouraging everyone that's listening to find people you can talk with. Again, they don't have to have the answers, but they do have to have a heart and an understanding of what you're going through. And there's a lot of people out there that can help you. So that's the advice I would give.
Yeah, it's so important because when we're isolated, especially as I think this was just exasperated through the pandemic of the effects of isolation and how we were forced and told and encouraged and suggested to stay away from everybody. And I think it's still the effects of that is still happening. Would you say that's true, especially
Absolutely.
with teams that you're working with, and how are people overcoming that?
People are isolating and people are working from home. And I understand working from home. I had a commute when I was in New York that was an hour and a half each way. And it was, I used to call it brutal. Let's just say it was inconvenient. But what I realized is that by going to the office, a number of things happen. One is the socialization. You interact with others, you create bonds and relationships. And if you're in a specific industry, I was in the financial industry, all those people that you're meeting at the office, all those people that you're interacting with, all those teams that you're having contact with, those are the people you're going to know in your industry for the next 40 years. Your paths cross time and time and time and time again. And you just can't substitute that real life connection with being on a Zoom. It's just not the same. So I know it's inconvenient. And I know it's harder, but those relationships, those bonds are going to help you throughout your career. Relationships are the number one value that you get from almost any experience that you have in the business.
Yeah. Yes. And amen to that. It's, there's connection here. We can feel energy, but being in person.
I'd much rather be there, Kyle.
Absolutely.
Because I feel a connection to you. You're a good guy, and your energy is contagious. So I wish I was able to share that space with you, because you can't fake it and you can't substitute it. It's the real deal. And it's so much more enjoyable. Embrace it. Embrace other people.
Yeah, I love that. And so let's see here. How do you see business culture changing as, they're battling, okay, stay at home, come in, hybrid, all of these things. And then the next, 2 to 5 years with how much culture's changing and you got new generations coming into the workplace. How do you see all of that working itself out, and what's going to be our next, opportunity for, the human capital piece of companies?
So I'm an advocate that many of the challenges that we're experiencing in our society today are solution based on the development of small businesses. I really believe that small businesses are the future and salvation of this country. And that's because they're relationship oriented. All right. So we're in an adversarial environment, us versus them, blue versus red versus green. It's just a constant battle, it seems. And people are waiting for help, but I'm here to tell you all, the government's not going to help you. Google's not going to help you. Apple's not going to help you. Chat GPT is not going to help you. The only ones that are going to help you are yourself and those that you help, the ones that you support. Okay. Reach out to small businesses and support them, because they're the ones that are supporting your community. They're the ones that are helping to make sure that you have parks. They're the ones that are hoping to make sure that there's volunteers at the hospital. These are the people that live next to you. Okay. It's so important that we help each other through our small businesses, because this is how relationships develop. I'm an advocate for putting people back into the center of business. Business isn't just about buying and selling and transactional activity. Business is about the humanity that's behind the contact that we have from buying and selling goods and services from each other. It's the contact of an interaction of our personas with each other that build the knit, that tighten the bonds, that create the safety nets that are our society that we want to live in. Otherwise, we end up in dystopia. And, we've seen what it's like when we don't trust each other. And we see what it's like when we don't know each other. We see what it's like when we don't listen to each other. And the way to overcome that is by being in touch with each other, by getting to know each other. It's hard to throw other people under the bus when you recognize their humanity. And that's what small businesses allow us to do, is to recognize and establish the humanity between us.
Chris, how do you see that play out as a business grows? How do they keep that? Because I think in the beginning, it's like, yes, we're relationship based. We're going to go around. We're going to say thank you to everybody. We're touching folks, embracing folks. And then we start to get a little bit size to us and a little bit of growth and a little bit. How do you encourage, when they go from small to mid, hey, don't forget what made you special. How do you encourage that and help folks do that?
It's one of the greatest challenges that businesses have, particularly when they're growing fast. It's really easy to get focused on the operational aspects instead of on the service aspects of our businesses. So you have to create systems. You have to create a systemic process for contacting and touching people on a regular basis. It's really easy to get lost in the technology. I'm going to tell you another quick story. Getting lost in the technology to try and build our businesses is as old as the hills. It really is. My father used to focus on his technology for creating new customer business. It was called the Yellow Pages. Today, people focus on their Facebook ads, Google ads, all of the chat bots, all of the things that they think is going to grow their business. And really, particularly if you're a small business, over 80% of your business comes from referrals. It's that easy. So there are processes, there are organizations that you can work with to create a referral-based business. There are processes that you need to initiate and institute on a regular basis that fosters relationships within your organization. There are steps that you as a leader can take on a regular basis. Here's a simple one. Get there early and go and talk to people that work at your company. If you go remote and you're going to one of your sites, don't just go there for the meetings that you have with other management. It's your responsibility to know who these people are and listen to them. Ask questions and listen to them. It's really easy to be so busy. You got your agenda. You're coming in. You got your meetings. You're seeing the vice president of operations, vice president of sales, regional director of this or that. What about the people that are actually at the call center? You're going to go and spend some time with the people at the call center. They're the ones that are interacting with your customers. They're the front line. So you are responsible as the leader for the culture of your company. If you make it a priority for the culture to be people oriented, I always say people are as important as profits. People are as important as profits. When you're people oriented, you find ways to make that a priority within your operations, regardless of how fast you grow, regardless of how expanded you are.
The people aspect of it can't be overlooked. And just again, from the beginning, like, hey, go say thank you, to, hey, take time to have people see you and be seen is simple, but it's so powerful. And I think about a company and a CEO that did that really well. There's a CEO of Home Depot. You heard this, where he would write notes and cards and, did it some 25,000 times to everyone from the the top of the top to the hourly associate. And I think that was, that's an example of, hey, didn't get too big.
Here's my notes and cards, Kyle.
Come on, there it is. He said, got it. I understood the assignment. I love it.
Does it take time? Yes. What's your priorities? I know there's things that seem so busy. Before you open the email, before you go down the rabbit hole, 30 minutes, 20 minutes. You'd be surprised at the impact that a handwritten card has.
Yeah. I need to implement the card. I will shoot videos, and send
looms are actually, believe it or not, looms. The feedback that I get from them are from people that it's really simple to do. It's a verbal connection, a face-to-face connection. You can personalize it. It's super fast. Boom.
Yeah. I will send
I've had some success with that.
And if I have their contact, then I'll just, hey, what's going on? Missed you today. Thinking of you, praying for you, whatever. And you just be surprised where people are like, man, I needed that. Or and I don't do every single day. I do it on Mondays, and there's like 5 or 6 that I'll send out, and I'll just say, okay, who is it today? And during my morning time, I'll just kind of ideate like, okay, oh man, how about this person? Oh, that's random. I hadn't talked to them in a while. Let's try this person.
But notice that you carved out time. You put system in place. Every Monday, I'm going to do 5. Okay. Yep. It doesn't have to be conquering the world or climbing Mount Everest. Real success comes from small steps on a persistent basis.
That's right.
Small steps on a persistent. Consistency is, you talk about, you want to be a champion. It's the consistency of training every single day. It's the consistency of getting support every single day. It's the consistency of showing up even when you don't want to. That's what makes a champion.
Come on now. Well, Chris, this has been amazing. And I could tell we could talk for another hour, if not more. Maybe I need to, now that we can, I need to maybe take a mobile podcast and just go around to my favorites and just post up, and we'll record. That'd be super cool. But Chris, where can people find you? Of course, we'll link the book. People should go check that out. But where can people find you online and get in touch with you?
My website is the center for everything right now. It's at www.get-looped.com. That's GET-LOOPED.com. And you can find everything there, from my book to reaching out to me to book me for speeches, to being able to, actually, I'm happy to help in any way that I can.
And I feel that energy, man. And so thank you so much for being a guest on the show. We'd have one more question for you. And I think it was a great lead in. We probably could have not asked this question, but in the spirit of consistency, we're going to say,
that was actually going to be my answer. That it's about being consistent. It's about showing up every day.
And that's what it means to be a champion. Chris, thanks so much for being on the show. We know what it means to be a champion to you. And thank you for making us better today.
Thank you, Kyle.
Absolutely. Peace.
You've been listening to the Unleash the Champ Leadership Podcast. Our passion is to talk to successful people and hear all about their journey and what it took to get there. We hope you've enjoyed the show. Make sure to like, rate, and review. We'll be back soon. But in the meantime, hit up the website at unleashthechamp.com. Find us on Instagram at Kyle J. Sullivan, and hit up that Facebook page at Unleash the Champ. Remember, if you can't fly, then run. If you can't run, then walk. If you can't walk, then crawl. But by all means, keep moving.